Now today we are going to study the Docker Compose. Till now we have covered the important concepts of the Docker, the important commands, types of commands in the Docker. But in the industry level, when there are so many containers running at the same time and so many people working at the same time in different containers, then there comes the concept of the compose. Compose is the management system, or you can say the better management system, organized way in which you can manage the Dockers. Here we will use the YML file. YML file is the config file to which you can initialize the Docker, create the image, and these things are quite easy to do. There will be less number of commands used because we are using the YML file. This is the industry level approach, and for if you are using only one container or if you are only one person doing the work, then you can use those commands. Earlier command which we have studied till now. But if you have a team and your team wants the proper management, then there comes the picture of the Docker Compose. It's a very important concept. If you haven't watched my previous video, I advise you to watch my previous video. Then you will have a better understanding of this. Why Docker Compose is needed? I've told you earlier also, like Docker Compose helps you to manage multiple containers at the same time. For example, in the earlier lecture we have created two images, two containers, NGINS container, Python API container. I'm taking an example. So to create these two containers, what you will do, you have to run these commands. You have to define the ports. Okay, with the ports you have to define the which image you have to take and the name of the container, everything. But again, I'm saying you have to run these commands separately. And maintaining these commands, running these commands manually, and running these commands is quite easy. Yes, these are easy, but if we require these command to be run on a daily basis, we want to monitor it, then these things can become quite hectic for us. So there comes a picture of the Docker Compose. Let's have a view of this. As I told you earlier, Docker, if we are using the Docker CLI, till now we have used the Docker CLI. Docker CLI, you have to manage the containers manually, but here we are using the YML file. YML file is the proper management system, proper organized way in which you can manage the containers. If a YML file is the config file, and not only in the Docker system, in many softwares, in many other softwares which have different uses. In fact, many other softwares and many other technologies also use the YML file. Okay, so YML file is a very important concept in the industry. So here Docker is also using YML file. I told you earlier, it is best for the one container practice, it is best for the multi-container practice. Here it is written in the command line, here it is written in the compose.yml. If you want to repeat these steps, then if you want to repeat these steps, then Docker CLI is quite hard to repeat because you have to run those commands one by one every time. But Docker Compose, just you have to run one command and it will do all the things automatically. You don't have to do anything else. This is the example which we will see later on. Now, what is Docker Compose? In the compose.yml file, it has a basic structure like this. Okay, let's understand this. Services. Services is the area where we define the containers inside it. And NGINX is the name of the service. Here you can take any name. It's not the compulsory you have to take the name related to the image. No. You can take any name, just it should represent the container, like you can understand it later on. What it is going to say, what it is defining. So name should be connected to the image for the best practice. Image, here you have to define the image, which image you want to use, then in which port your container will be exposed. Okay. Now these are important commands. Docker compose up, it will run the compose file and start services, and it will also show the logs. If you use the -d after it and you don't show the logs, it will run the background. Docker upbuild, it will run the images and build the images and then start the services. Docker compose PS, what services are running right now? Docker compose logs, to see the logs. Docker compose down, it will tell the containers and we'll also remove the containers. We will practice it. In this lecture, we will create only one container service for now. Now open the command line and go to the folder in which you want to create the files. Then create the demo folder. I'm naming compose basic demo. Already I have created this folder, so I don't need to create this folder. It's already there. You have to run this command. Then after this, use the one cd compose basic demo. Now we are inside this folder. Then our first job is to create the compose.yml inside this. So how will we create this compose.yml? Open the VS Code. The VS Code, create a new file compose.yml. Right now we are inside this file. Now already I have explained this. This is the services, this is the image, this is the services area, then this is the name of the service, then the image which we will use to create the container, then container name, then in which port it will be exposed. Copy this and paste it here. This is the compose.yml file. That is the most important file in the compose system. Now what we have to do? Already we have discussed this part. Now we have to run this service. How we will run this service? Simply use the docker compose up. Before running this, initialize the docker. Now docker compose. We have used the command docker compose up to initialize this. Now we can see the logs. We have exported this in the 8080 port. So copy this localhost and go to the new tab and run this. Our container has been initialized. We want to cross check in the, here you can see it tells you the logs also, like someone has accessed this port. Our activity has been noticed here. To stop it, you can use Ctrl C. Now to delete the container and everything, docker compose down. You can see container removed, network removed. This way to run in the background, you can use docker compose up D and to the docker compose PS virtual running services. Thank you. In the next lecture, we will cover more advanced type in which we will cover the two containers at the same time. How we can manage two containers at the same time, two or more containers. Thank you.